Erev Tov, everyone. Erev Tov. It is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, therefore it must be Zeyde Story Corner. That's right, Zeyde Story Corner. And we're continuing on with the stories from the Sephardic diaspora. And so far they have been really interesting. Yeah, very interesting. And there we have plenty of them. So we have plenty to get us through for a while. Yeah, I was just seeing who we have in the chat room. We have Donald in the chat room so far. Okay, so it's better one than none. Yeah, that's right, better one than none. Yeah, Donald, I don't know what is going on with YouTube's clock. You know, I set it for our time, and it just does whatever it wants. Veronica's just joined us, and so has Marshall. So, okay, so yeah, I don't know what's going on with YouTube. I mean, they just crazy. Anyway, more stories tonight. Yeah, more stories. Yeah. So I guess we should probably get right to it. Yes, we should. Okay, so let me go ahead and get you on your camera. There I am. Okay, so we are going to start out this evening with this one is called the Hebron Purim. And this was told by Miriam Sofer to Moshe Rabbi. And we begin. Okay. Many years ago, there was a Sephardic Jewish community in Old Hebron where the patriarchs are buried. Its members had come there after the expulsion from Spain, as well as from other Christian countries where they were persecuted because they were Jews. One day, two distinguished emissaries from Jerusalem came to Hebron to collect money to redeem captives. The emissaries entered the synagogue in the Jewish quarter and told the heads of the community about their mission. The rabbis of Jerusalem have commissioned us to collect 5,000 piasters from the Jews of Hebron as the community's share in the redemption of captives. One of the highest of all the mitzvot. Yes, that's true. It is one of the highest of all the mitzvot. Much money is needed for this great mitzvah. We cannot give you such a large sum, replied the heads of the community. We must be concerned first and foremost for the paupers in our own city. The poor of your own city take precedence, nor can we empty out the community's coffers. They tried to bargain and offer the emissaries a smaller sum, but the emissaries held firm and refused to accept less than 5,000 piasters. If the community could not raise this amount, then relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from another quarter. This sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Sounds like something that we just read just a little while ago. Yeah, like the Megillat Esther. Exactly. Okay, so the Jews of Hebron would lose the privilege of participating in the important mitzvah of redeeming captives. The emissaries left Hebron empty-handed. Sometime later, the Turkish government set up a new governor in the Hebron district. This Pasha was a terrible anti-Semite. During the first days of his term, he instituted anti-Jewish regulations aimed at extorting money from them in the form of taxes and assessments. But because he was a serious anti-Semite, he soon tired of extorting money slowly, beat by beat, and devised a plot to drain the blood of the Jewish community all at once and in a large sum. The Pasha was an educated man, well versed in history. He had read about how the Christian rulers of Europe treated their Jewish subjects. He knew that Christian rulers frequently arrested rabbis and Jewish community leaders and held them in prison until the community paid a large ransom for their release. He also knew that there were other rulers who expelled the Jews from their countries and confiscated their property. These methods caught his fancy. He summoned the rabbis and scholars along with the leaders of the Jewish community and informed them that he was levying a tax of 50,000 piasters on the community. They had a month to pay up. If they failed to do so, the leaders of the community would pay with their lives, and the Jews of Hebron would be sold as slaves. To keep the community leaders from running away, he gave immediate orders for their arrest and detention. He sent the rabbi and scholars home so they could start collecting the funds. The rabbi and community leaders tried to prove to him that it was utterly impossible for them to pay such a large sum. They begged him to reduce the amount and give them a longer period to pay. But the Pasha was adamant and ignored their pleas and entreaties. You okay there? Yeah, I'm fine. Can I continue? Yes, please do. Okay. Only now did the heads of the community realize that God was punishing them, measure for measure. They had not wanted to participate in the mitzvah of redeeming captives. Now, unless they paid 10 times as much to the anti-Semite governor, they themselves would be sold as slaves. Who knew whether anyone would be willing to redeem them? The rabbis and scholars went home, but they did not rest. They assembled all the Jews of Hebron and told them the Pasha's edict. Then they decreed a public fast and called on the entire community to repent. Perhaps God would have mercy and save them from their distress. As the Pasha's deadline approached, no solution could be seen on the horizon. The Jews prayed, cried, and wept many tears. Finally, on the very last day, they decided to dispatch a petition to the patriarchs themselves, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, who are buried in the cave of Machpelah. They asked the patriarchs to awaken God's compassion so that he would show mercy to them and their children and help them avert the calamity. In sanctity and purity, these sages inscribed their petition on the strip of parchment. But a problem arose at once. How could the parchment be conveyed to the cave of Machpelah, which in those days was in the custody of non-Jews, who did not allow Jews to approach it? The Muslims had built a mosque over the cave and forbade Jews to come anywhere near it. Jews were permitted to ascend only 7 steps outside the mosque and pray against its outer wall. Even for this privilege, they had to pay the Arab watchman posted there. The only idea they could come up with was to bribe the Arab watchman to place the piece of parchment in the cave. The entrance to the cave was closed and locked. Even the watchman could not get inside, as the Jews well knew. But they also knew there was a small window that opened into the cave. And, indeed, in return for a handsome sum, the watchman agreed to slip the parchment into the cave and swore he would do so immediately. That night, sleep deserted the Pasha. His thoughts raced in his brain, quite out of control. The very next day, he was going to receive a fabulous sum. He would no longer have to wear himself out extorting small amounts. The unscrupulous Pasha kept his money in an iron strongbox in his bedroom. Whenever he had difficulty falling asleep, he would take a sack out of the box and count the gold coins it contained. He did so on this night as well. Removing one sack, which had 50,000 piastres in it, he started counting the coins, relishing the thought that tomorrow he would have as much again. When he finished counting the money, he returned the sack to its iron box, locked it, and placed the key under his pillow. Then he climbed into bed and fell asleep. Without warning, 3 old men appeared in his bedroom. "If your life is dear to you, give us 50,000 piastres this instant," they threatened. "Otherwise, you will surely die." Trembling and deathly pale, the Pasha got out of bed, opened the iron strongbox, took out the sack of gold coins, and gave it to them. The 3 men vanished as if they had never been there. The Pasha woke up in a cold sweat. His hands groped under the pillow to see if the key was where he left it. When he found it, he was relaxed. It had only been a bad dream, and dreams, of course, are lies. Calm again, he fell back to sleep. When he awoke up in the morning, he had quite forgotten his nightmare. But he did not forget that today was the longed-for day when the Jews were to give him 50,000 piastres. The Pasha was not the only one who had been unable to sleep that night. The Jews of Hebron had not slept either. They gathered in the synagogue, recited penitential prayers, and implored God to avert the evil decree from them. Early in the morning, The Pasha came to the synagogue accompanied by a squad of soldiers. The soldiers pounded on the door. "Open in the name of the Pasha," they demanded. With weak knees, the shamus went to open the door. On his way, he noticed on the floor of the synagogue foyer, next to the basin where the worshippers washed their hands, a small sack. Only with great difficulty did the old shamus manage to pick up the heavy sack, which was full of money. He brought it inside and gave it to the rabbi. The rabbi's eyes lit up when he saw what was inside the sack. Then the shamus went back to the door and opened it wide for the Pasha and his soldiers. "I've come for my money," announced the Pasha in a threatening voice. Without a word, the rabbi picked up the sack and handed it to the Pasha. The cruel ruler cast a quick glance at the sack and turned pale as chalk. It was his own sack. "How did you get your hands on this?" he demanded in a quavering voice. But he did not wait for an answer. Remembering his dream of the night before, he suddenly felt faint. They brought him a chair, and he sat down. After several minutes, he spoke in a changed voice. "Now, I will tell you how this sack of money came to you. Your ancestors, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, rose from their grave in the cave of Machpelah and to defend you. It is indeed true that the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. I can only beg you to forgive me. My sole request is that you pardon me for my evil conduct toward you. I promise you faithfully, and henceforth I will treat you fairly and give you no cause for complaints. As a sign of my goodwill to you from now on, not only do I release you from the levy, I make you a present of this sack to compensate you for the past, on condition that you pray for my health and well-being." This took place on the 14th day of the month of Tevet. To commemorate the miracle that saved the Jews of Hebron, they declared for themselves and their descendants that on the 14th of Tevet, the day of their deliverance, be celebrated as Hebron Purim, or Window Purim, to commemorate the miracle worked for them by means of the tiny window in the cave of Machpelah, through which they conveyed their petition to the patriarchs. And that's the end of the story. What did you think, huh? Pretty good, eh? Okay. So we go on to another story. A little short one before we take a break. This one is called The Miracle of the Torah Scrolls. It was told by Simcha Meyochas Levi to Tamar Alexander. Yes, there was another miracle. Every year the Greek king used to come from Spain to celebrate Christmas in Bethlehem. You know, Bethlehem, that's where, yada, 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 yada. So every year, he, the king, would come to visit at Christmas. They would take the Torah scrolls from the Yochanan ben Zakkai's synagogue and go out to meet the king, a welcoming ceremony. What did the Jews do? They didn't put the Torah scrolls inside. They took them out and carried only the cases. Yes, empty. And they went out. Of course, these are the Sephardic Torah cases, so they have the surrounding. So it's very easily to take the Torah scroll out and close it up, and it looks just like it normally would. Okay, so now you know. Okay, so of course, he, the king, didn't know this. Once there was an argument. There was an argument between the Stambuli synagogue and the Yochanan ben Zakkai synagogue. I'll show you now, someone said. What did he do? He went and informed on them. To who? To those who organized the reception for the Christians. You think these Jews are coming out to greet the king with their Torah scrolls? It's all a sham. They remove the Torah scrolls and bring only the empty cases. Can that be? They, the authorities said. Are they deceiving the king? We'll show those Jews. They, the authorities, pretended they didn't know anything. The king still didn't know anything about it. The empty Torah case, the Jews did not know that the authorities had been informed. Then the chief rabbi had the same dream 3 nights running. Get up and put the Torah scrolls in their cases, he was told. It was already a week before the date. Master of the universe, he said, what can these dreams mean? The date of the king's arrival approached. 3 days before his arrival, he, the rabbi, had the dream again. This time he called the shamas at once. He told him, for 3 days now I've been dreaming this, that we should go put the Torah scrolls into the cases. The shamas took the rabbi and they went to the synagogue and put the Torah scrolls into the cases and went back to bed. No one knew what they had done. When the king arrived and they, the Jews, went out to greet him, what did they take? The Torah cases. On the way back, when everyone was returning to the city, the authorities told the king that it was all a lie. There were no Torah scrolls inside, and it was only the cases. Indeed, do these Jews want to deceive me? I'll show them. Suddenly he said, stop here in the road. I want to see what the Jews' Torah is all about. All the Jews were trembling. They didn't know that the rabbi and shamas had put these scrolls back into the cases. But when they opened the cases, all the Torah scrolls were there where they belong. Look what kind of people there are who can spread such libels, said the king. The royal procession kept going. Nothing had happened. They kept going. When the authorities returned to the city, they asked, who is it that told us that? It's a fact that the Torah scrolls are in their places. At once they said it was a Jew himself who had come to inform. They immediately went and arrested him again. The custom was that somebody who did something that wasn't right, they hanged him. They would put a rope around his neck in public and lead him out. Kind of a weird ending there, huh? But that's the end of the story. Okay, so before we go on to the next story, we are going to take our break. And when we return, we will continue on with more stories. So please, stay tuned.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back, just as promised. Okay. We get on to the next story now, which was basically a conversation between two people. It's told by Simcha Meichat Levi to Tamar Alexander. So, we begin. And it is called The Adventures of Raphael Miuchat. There was once this Pasha in Jerusalem who was really wicked and hated the Jews. Once he threatened them, if you do not give me a large sum of money, how do you say, una pechad di parat, a large sum of money? In those days, there were bishliks. A bishlik was for karotikos, and a kuartiko was a meal. Back then, there was a meal. Do you remember it? No? You don't remember when there was a meal? A grush is 10 meals. And that was a kuratiko. Every kuratiko was 10 meals. Every bishlik was for kuratikos, for gush. So, anyway. The Jews had to bring the bishliks. He demanded that they bring him many bishliks. If not, the Jews would be in big trouble, yes? In the meantime, he took several Jews and threw them into prison. He arrested them. If you don't bring money, I won't let them out. What could they do? Where could they get money? They didn't even have bread to eat. For the most part, they learned in yeshiva. You understand? That there was no money coming from abroad the way dollars do today. They had to support themselves, you understand? There was no welfare, not like today where there's Social Security. They didn't have that, the poor wretches. So what did they do? The sages got together. We have to do something, they agreed. Then the chief rabbi, he was a miyuchat, Rabbi Chachamim Moshe Miyuchat, said to another miyuchat, you know what? You must go to Constantinople, however you want to. If you can find a volunteer to go with you, that's fine. Otherwise, you have to go alone because we are in grave danger. But I am not such an important person. He was a humble man. He was shy. He said, I'm not going. He, the chief rabbi, said to him, you must go for your sake. God will help us. For your sake, God will get us out of trouble. He followed what the chief rabbi said to him and took with him a child, one of his students, as an assistant. They traveled to Constantinople, but he sent word to his host in Constantinople that they were coming from Jerusalem. And indeed, they received him very nicely in Constantinople. It took them 5 days to travel from Jerusalem to Constantinople, and his host welcomed him. What can I tell you? They received him like a king. He ate and drank, and he was received very, very well. During that time, when he was with his host, at night he dreamt. He dreamt that someone would die, that there was going to be a plague. In Istanbul, there would be a plague. He slept again, and again he dreamt. When it happened a third time, he said, "This is for a reason. It must mean something." He said to his host, Rabbi Tarfon or something, I don't know what his name was, say Rabbi Yaakov. It doesn't matter. He said to his host, "We must. If you don't leave this house, you are all lost." And then they all got up, the family and the guests, that is Rabbi Raphael Miyuchat. They took boats and sailed in the sea. They said, "There will be a plague. The house will collapse." I do not know exactly what kind of dreams he dreamt. They ran away. They were away for several hours. When they returned to the house, what did they see? There was an old woman lying on the floor. The plague had begun. The community leaders were terrified. "You see," he said, "how God works wonders and miracles for us. We would all have died that evening, that night. We would have all died. God has worked a miracle for them." The next day they went to the king, Sultan Abdul Majid, and told him about the situation in Jerusalem, that the Pasha was a terrible anti-Semite, making trouble for the Jews and demanding that they pay him a huge sum of money. Without delay, because the leader of the community was the king's friend, the king said to him, "Don't worry." At once he sat down and wrote a letter, just what was required. "Give it to the Pasha. He will never harm the Jews again. He has no authority to harm them. He must stop annoying them." That's really what happened. The Sultan gave Raphael Miyuchat money as a gift for the Jews. The leader of Constantinople community raised a collection for the Jews living there and gave it to him. Then Raphael Miyuchat started home. On the road, he was attacked by highwaymen. They took the money and everything he had. They even took his donkey. But they had scarcely moved off, no more than a few steps, when they realized that their legs were not moving. Their feet were stuck to the ground as if they had suddenly become, may heaven protect us, paralyzed. "It is because we robbed the Jew," they wondered. So they went back and begged him to forgive them. Here's everything we took from you. Please give us a blessing so we'll be on the way we were before all this happened. All right, he agreed. He took all his possessions back, including the money, and gave them a blessing. Go in peace, in God's name, he said to them. But they didn't. They raised their scimitars. They wanted to kill him. But when they raised their swords, his throat became his neck. His neck became like marble, and their swords shattered on his neck. If you put a sword to a neck, the neck breaks, but instead of killing him, the swords broke. There were 9 of them, these robbers. This is a being from heaven, not a man, they said when they saw this. Again, they asked him to forgive them. He truly forgave them, and they parted in peace. The rabbi returned to Jerusalem in peace. Raphael Mehuchat had worked miracles, the miracle of the plague, the miracle of the highwayman. He brought the money to the Pasha. From then on, they lived together with the Arabs happily. That situation, peace with the Arabs, lasted for a number of years. That too was a miracle. All the Miyuchatzes experienced miracles. All of them. Can you imagine that? That's why they collected all these miracle stories. They were handed down from grandfather to grandfather. It's not a tall tale. It's all true. And that's the end of that story. Okay. We have time for another? Well, let's see what we got here. Yeah, this is kind of a long one. Okay, let's start this one. Maybe we do a cliffhanger just for Donald. Okay, so this one is called A Story About My Great-Grandfather, as told by Yitzhak Bitton to Tamar Alexander. This really happened to my great-grandfather, who lived in the old city in Jerusalem, Rabbi Shalom Buchvat. People used to come to this Rabbi Shalom on the night of Mimunah. That just happened. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. That's the night after Passover. To kiss his hand, he would bless them and give them 2 dates, which is the custom. People used to go from house to house, giving presents of dates, milk and honey, and lighting candles, just like on the 7th night of Pesach. He lived near the Holy Temple, next to the Hamah al-Ayin bathhouse. You had to climb up 3 flights to kiss his hand, and he gave you 2 dates. He never left his house. He made a synagogue where he lived. What? Oh, nothing. Anyway, they called it the Papo's Synagogue, and everyone came there. He never went into the city, but only from his house to the synagogue, and from the synagogue back to the house. Wherever he drank water, other people tried to do the same. Once, several days before Passover, he had no matzah, no dates. In fact, he had nothing at all. Mother Hannah was embarrassed. "What will we do?" she asked him. "It will be Passover in another 3 or 4 days. Whatever the Holy One, blessed is He, has decreed, that is what will be." 2 more days passed. It was the night before Passover, when you search for the hametz. The next night would be Passover. She cashied the pots and dishes, made all her preparations, and did whatever she could. Then the Rabbi Shalom wrote a note. Master of the universe, this year I have nothing with which to bless the people. Bless them yourself. Just at that moment, a gust of wind blew in and carried the note to the western wall, the kotel. This is a true story. The shamans of the western wall also told it to us. The note blew down to the western wall where a tourist from America who didn't know Hebrew was praying from his prayer book. Suddenly, this note fell into the open book. The tourist who could not decipher the strange letters took the note and brought it to the shamans of the western wall. Raphael Miyuyat read the note to the tourist and added, "This year the rabbi has nothing with which to bless the people and is appealing to God to help him. But you must know," Miyuyat told the tourist, "that this rabbi won't accept gifts or bribes." The tourist decided to buy food for him, Rabbi Shalom. He came with a huge basket full of all sorts of items. He climbed up to the house. The shamans had shown him where it was. The tourist found Rabbi Shalom, bowed, kissed his hand, and put down the basket. He had left the Arab porter outside because Rabbi Shalom's house was like a holy place. "No, my dear sir," Rabbi Shalom said to the tourist, "I won't take it. Heaven forbid I should accept gifts from flesh and blood." "You will take it." The tourist showed him the letter. "Is this your writing?" "Yes." "The Holy One, blessed is He, blew this into the book of Psalms I was reading at the western wall. The Chacham Raphael Miyuyat showed me the way to your house. The Holy One, blessed is He, sent this to me. Now, you must take these things. They're not from me. They're from the Holy One, blessed is He." Rabbi Shalom accepted the basket and blessed the tourist. And I think that's where we're going to stop for tonight, because the next story is a bit longer, so we wait until next week to start that. Okay, just a quick note. Tomorrow night's The Rabbis Discuss will not be on tomorrow night. See, Rabbi Anshel has been out of the country for a while, and he has some important paperwork that he has to get delivered tomorrow. So we have many more Tuesdays, so we will do it next Tuesday, when we will be discussing Jewish children's education. Okay. Wednesday night is the Torah study, of course, with Rabbi A, and Rabbi Angel will be back by then to join us for this study. And then, of course, Friday for Kabbalat, Shabbat, and Shabbat for Shachrit and Musaf. And then right back here next Monday, and we pick up with the next story, the sanctification of God's name. Until then, my dear friends, we will simply say, Laila Tov.